Gary, Jason brought up, I like what he asked in chat. I hear this objection a lot. If the big guys spend millions and still get hacked, how are you able to protect me? And
yeah, we're not.
And basically, like, am I just going to get hacked anyway? Like, what's the use?
Yeah, well, one, you can reduce the risk. There are things you can do that you have in your control that can significantly lower those chances, but we can't eliminate it the same way no one else can eliminate it based on the way that the attacks work today, right? You can use buzzwords like you can reduce their attack surface, right? But you can't eliminate it. But also, we're going to make equal time and equal investments to prepare. And Andrew, you like to say, in the assumed breach world of what's going to happen. And together, when we do that, and we use framework, we can use the NIST framework to simply explain the concept at a high level. They don't need to know about EDR, and they don't need to know about SOC and SIEM. They just need to understand these concepts and why these investments. And on the back end, what you're doing with roles, with process, with standards, with tools, with all those put together to be able to give them a risk profile that is defensible. I love that word now. Now that Jason Justin gave it to us, I've stolen that from him.
And I think it was perfect, Jason. I think it's a perfect time to talk about, being in a, what's resilience, which Ryan's kind of really honed in on throughout this, through the cyber call and a lot of the talks he's done. It's like, hey, I'm glad you brought that up. You're right. So let's talk about when that happens. And if that happens, what resiliency looks like, because that's the
Yeah, and Ryan, this is a good. Why don't you pick off with what you were writing in there? Because I think it's a perfect segue, dude.
Yeah, and basically what I was saying is, there's an assumption in the question which is wrong, which is that it is preventable for anyone, and so that goes back to landscape. The landscape that you exist in, the world you live in, is no longer one where there is this concept of people that are safe and people that aren't safe. And so security has changed to, again, doing things to minimize the likelihood, not make it zero, but then also working on the other side of that coin, which is what are we going to do when the bad thing happens to make sure you stay up and running with as minimal damage and impact to your business as possible.
Because that's the part you have more control over that.
Yeah, I mean, but this goes back to what Wes said in the keynote of the summit a month or two ago, whenever that was, right? Left of protect and identify is the attacker advantage. Right of detect, respond, and recover is the defender's advantage. And when they come to that point of boom, and you're now working right of boom, they're in your house. They're on your field, right? That's where you need to be investing in capabilities. And that's a very simple framework too, to have the conversation. Well, you're assuming that that the only thing we do is stop the bad thing from happening, but there's this whole other world right of the bad thing happening that we can help you with. And that goes back to what Gary was saying. How would your existing MSP handle this for you? Here's an example. Do you know how they would behave? I can tell you how I would behave. Or I can make you resilient to this.
Or have they had this conversation with you? Because if they haven't, you're not going to like the answer.